Today's podcast is brought to you by Progresso Talent Partners, who for more than 25 years have successfully delivered interim and permanent leadership talent to transform businesses. To hire the talent you need to enable your business to thrive, visit www.progressotalent.com today. Andrew Radcliffe is the co-founder of software engineering company Spyrosoft. Founded to bring together software development enthusiasts, in just 5 years the business has grown to employ more than 600 people in 5 countries, and according to the Financial Times, is the 5th fastest growing company in Europe. So what is the story behind the story? Without further ado, let's get into it. Andrew Radcliffe, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Lee.
Welcome to the Extrology podcast. As always, really appreciative for the opportunity to engage in this discussion with you and have you on as my guest. So
thank you.
So very much appreciated. And before we dive into to the wonderful story that is Spyrosoft and all that would entail, I'm keen, as is customary with the Extrology podcast, to start with the early years. So tell us, first and foremost, Andrew, where did you grow up and what was childhood and school life like for you?
Oh, great. It's great to be here, Lee. Thanks very much. And yeah, I had an interesting childhood because I actually lived in the United States for 3 or 4 years when I was younger. And my father had a job in New York City. We lived in northeast New Jersey. I went to school there for 3-4 years. Played lots of American sports, and really my youth, I think, was probably divided between being British and being American. And I remember moving back and came back with a slight American accent, which everybody thought was hilarious. But I was an amazing basketball player, so that's something that did come good out of that time in America. It still have some friends there today, some connections that I'm still really in touch with, and that's 40 odd years later. So, interesting childhood.
Were you born in the UK, and therefore what age were you when you moved to the States?
Yeah, I was born in England. I moved there when I was 10, came back when I was nearly 14. Yeah, I didn't really have a choice at that age. My father, his job was transferred, and we just sort of took it as an opportunity to go and try something new and a bit of a new adventure and new culture. And I think, looking back on it, we had a great time, but also we missed, the benefits of living in England. And the American dream is there for a lot of people. And we did enjoy that time, but it's a different way of growing up. And school in America is very different than school in the UK.
What do you think? Because inevitably that's quite a formative stage in your development, is it? As you progress from childhood into adolescence, what do you think the phrase that springs to mind is gained? But what do you think you gained from the experience?
Yeah, I think one of the things really it taught me from very young age really was a bit about self-sufficiency, because as a 10-year-old you're going into a completely different school, different culture. Yes, they speak English, but of course there's differences. It taught me to really adapt and explore new friendships, new ways of doing things, and be open to different ways of doing things. So yeah, I met new people. I got stuck into different sports. I tried to embed myself into that time and that environment. And it did teach me, I think, to open my mind to new opportunities.
And I guess if you therefore look at those childhood heroes, might the posters on the bedroom wall looked a little different as...
Absolutely. I still love basketball today. At the time, it would have been baseball players. It would have been Larry Bird, Boston Celtics back in the 80s. A lot of American football players. And I shouldn't call it soccer, but I used to play lots of soccer when I was there. And, being English, everybody thought I was amazing at it. And, truth be told, I wasn't. I was always quite big for my age, and I just made a great central defender because I was a lot bigger than some of the other people. But yeah, lots of sport, lots of new sports to play, and New York Giants, as I have great memories of. Actually, I was in the lift in a hotel when we first arrived in New Jersey. But the bank put us up in a hotel, and I can remember getting into this lift with some of the New York Giants football players. As it turned out, I didn't know at the time. And I walked into this lift surrounded by these enormous men, and they didn't really know who I was. I didn't know who they were, and they probably had a bit of a dent to their ego because there was this young kid here that didn't know who they were. So it's good memories. Good memories.
So, at what age do you first recall developing an interest in technology?
So I came back from the States at about 13, 14 years of age. And that was really at the time when the BBC and the Amstrad CPC 464 computers really started to come into existence. And I remember my father at the time came home one day, having been to Dixon's or a shop like that. And he had this Amstrad computer. And we just started playing with it, really, and it just captivated me. And I remember buying some of the magazines and looking at the code in the magazines and learning how to program. And that was really my start. I would spend hours, literally, just typing out these programs from the magazine, copying them, learning the different structures and the statements, and trying to put real basic sort of games together. And I spent a couple of years doing that, taught myself how to program in BASIC at the time. And then I had an opportunity to study O-level computer studies. And that's really where it took off, because it became more of a serious subject for me and opened my mind to technology and what could be. I did my O-level project. I wrote, I think it was a spreadsheet program, a financial budgeting spreadsheet program. That was my project for O-level. And I can remember having the old fanfold printed paper dot matrix laid out in my mother and father's lounge. I think there were about 20 sheets of fanfold paper connected one side of the room to the other, and that was my project. So yeah, I passed it. I did all right in it, and just had that interest really from day one. It was this mystical device.
And why? You mentioned it captivated, I think was the phrase that you used. What was it about, if you go back to that Amstrad, what was it about the technology and the possibility, I guess? What was it that captivated you, do you think?
I think for me, it was the challenge of being able to effectively command a machine to do something for you. And there's an intellectual element to that. There was a learning element. I've always enjoyed learning. And that probably comes back to my experiences in America, being open-minded, looking at what's in front of you and trying to understand it and make the best use of it. And when we had this Amstrad computer, I had this opportunity now to program and tell the machine to do things. And that might be something as silly as bouncing a ball from one side of the screen to the other, or it might be I can remember writing a program to draw an outline of the British Isles. So, you had to plot each pixel and you tell it to connect one pixel to another through a line. And in the end, you have an outline of the map of our country. And just that, achieving something like that for me was kind of magical.
What do you think you learned from that experience, that early experience?
I think logic, it ultimately, it comes down to a 1 or a 0. You have to make a decision. So my sort of throughout my life, really, I've always been a decision maker. I've never had trouble making a decision. If I make a wrong decision, I'll change it and make another decision to correct it. And when you're writing code, when you're writing software, you have to make decisions all the time based on logic and reasoning. And I think that sort of early exploration of software development then really hammered that one home for me. So yeah, solving problems, using your understanding about what you want to achieve, and then making decisions to make it happen, turning that into code and instructions in the software enables it to come to fruition.
And had you a sort of natural affinity towards mathematics and subjects like that? Often we read much about the correlation between the application of maths and technology and how that's enabled men to evolve. Was that a sort of natural steer for
Not
you?
really. Interestingly, I mean, I've always been okay at maths. I would never say I'm an expert at all in anything. However, I clearly am. I must have an element of logic and mathematics about the way my brain is wired. But I would say it's sort of a balance, really. I was, if anything, at school in the early days, I was probably better actually at English and English language and English literature. But yeah, I've always got a grade C, no matter which sort of level of mathematics I've studied. It always came out as grade C, which is quite strange, really.
So what was it that prompted you to pursue a career in technology?
It was just that passion, just playing around with the machine, trying to make it do things, and just seeing where I could take it. At the time, I was back in England. I'd done my O level. I was just moving through to, well, what happens next? And it was a difficult time to get a start in a job in computing. You really needed a degree. If you didn't have a degree, if you were really lucky, you would be a computer operator. And that at the time was people that would change tapes on the old mainframe computers or replace printer paper, that type of thing. It's quite a different sort of job. And I realized, to get a degree, you really needed to get a good degree from a good university. So I managed to get some work experience. It was called a company called Plessey at the time. Back in the day, people might remember the name Plessey. They had a great apprenticeship program. It was probably one of the best apprenticeship programs that you could get on in the late 80s. And I was fortunate enough to be introduced to get an opportunity for a little summer job, like a work experience placement only for a few weeks. And I went there and I gave everything my best shot. I changed the tapes. I changed the printer paper. I had a chat with some of the programmers. And I was entranced. I mean, I remember chatting to one developer. He was writing an adventure game, text-based role-playing adventure game in his lunchtime on this mainframe computer, and just chatting with them and absorbing what they were doing. And I knew that was for me, but I didn't have the degree. So it was about, well, how do I make that leap? And having worked at Plessey in that work experience placement, I learned that actually they do these apprenticeships, and I put my name forward for that. I did some horrendous aptitude tests all day long. I mean, it was well, what a process that was. But yeah, I passed them, and would you believe I was given an offer to start a 5-year apprenticeship program with them? They took 3 people out of several hundred people that applied, and I was lucky enough to get that opportunity. And I spent then the next 4 years plus another year going through every department in the company, learning and getting a taster of how that works in that department. What is it about? How do you do that job? And then moving to the next one. And then several years later, I'd worked my way through the company. And at night school, I went and did night school to build my qualifications from O levels and turned it into a BTEC HND in computer studies. 5 years later, I had that BTEC HND and I was given my first chance as a software engineer. And that was my first full-time role.
I mean, it's really interesting. I think I'm a huge advocate of apprenticeships generally, and I think that's a great example of the breadth of exposure that would have afforded you at respectfully a relatively early stage in life. Certainly to understand whether the direction of travel was purchasing or finance or HR or whatever discipline you could pick. Is that a fair assumption? It was really that breadth that you got to see every department function across the organisation.
That's exactly it. You get to really understand what happens maybe in the factory, on the assembly line. You get to work in the stores. You get to work in, at the time it was, the software design department. You get to work in software development, testing. You get to work in quality assurance. So you get placements, if you like, in all these different areas. And at the end of the process, you have this amazing view across the whole company, what that company does and how it works. And you're still only 22, 23 years old. So yeah, you come out with sort of 5 years of experience under your belt at the same time a university graduate would have come out with just a degree with no experience. So I think, it's a different way of doing it, but you come out as a very valuable employee because you have that depth of understanding from day one, really, in your sort of full-time software engineer role. So I came out into, again, I was lucky. I came out into a department called Intelligent Networks. It was, back in the day, it was the place to work. I mean, every developer wanted to work on Intelligent Networks. It was the flagship project at the time. It was when voice over IP sort of started to come into fruition, and you didn't have to send voice down a telephone switch anymore. It could be digitized and sent through effectively the internet. And now, working in that area, everybody wanted to sort of a piece of that if you were a developer, because all developers want to work on the latest technologies and projects. And I was lucky enough. I came in as a junior software engineer and got my start in that environment. And then I rolled in the clock on a little bit more. But when I got to sort of 26, I think I'm right in reflecting that I actually became the youngest software development manager in the division. I was 26. I had a team of about 20 people working for me, developing software for voice over ATM and voice over IP. And that really gave me my first taste of becoming a manager, a people manager within a technical department, building those systems.
Two questions for struck, but if I just wind back ever so slightly, was it always going to be, when you completed that apprenticeship, was absolutely software engineering was a dead cert? Was there a sort of brief flirtation as an accountant or anything else on the?
No.
It was always going to be software engineering, was it?
No. I've been sort of laser focused, I think, since the day I touched that Amstrad. It was all about the technology, and I was going to be, come hell or high water, I was going to be a software engineer. That was my mission, and and that really, 5 years later, after finishing that apprenticeship program, it happened. And, I sort of springboard from there really into that management role, which meant now I was not just coding individual sort of parts of a system. I was now responsible for the delivery of proper projects, and, my level of responsibility went up.
And imagine at that time, so this would have been what, sort of early, mid-90s, something along those sorts of lines?
It would have, yeah, exactly. It would have been about 95.
So at that time, the working environment was very different to the working environment in which we find ourselves today. And the thing that strikes me as an organisation such as Plessey, am I right in thinking they were acquired ultimately by Siemens? Is that they ended up under the Siemens banner as we would recognise them today? But you'd have been surrounded, I suspect, because of that. We were at that sort of transitional point whereby there would have been a proportion of those that would have joined an organisation such as that at, say, 16, 18, and with a view to retiring at 65. You had a great job with a great organisation, and that was life. You'd walk out with a great pension and all that would entail. So that management responsibility that you found yourself enjoying at 26, I would have imagined you'd have had a proportion of, respectfully, certainly in terms of tenure, those that were distinctly more tenured within the Plessey environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, definitely.
People who'd have had maybe 20, 30 years on you in terms of work experience. That must have been a real eye-opener, because if I recall back at that time, it was certainly much more, it must have been unusual, to your point, the youngest in the business. It would have been unusual to have had management responsibility at such a young age. All credit you, but nonetheless unusual. That must have been a real baptism of fire in terms of managing those people.
Absolutely. Do you know, I have one thought, and because I was sort of homegrown as well in Plessey through that apprenticeship program, you were part of the team. I was a developer in amongst those people. And then all of a sudden you be promoted and you become this software development manager. And absolutely, I was, a 20 years difference between me and a lot of those other people in meetings. And I can remember, and I have very vivid, very, very vivid memory. I can remember walking down the corridor one day. My team were in a meeting room. I was 2 or 3 minutes late. I was held up somewhere. And I was walking down the corridor to the meeting room. The door was open. I could hear them talking. I walked around the corner into the meeting room, and it was silence. And I knew at that point, I'm no longer a developer. I'm now different, and I would be treated differently. And there are other things like, those are the days where you had a management canteen. The staff had a separate canteen, restaurant, and management had a different one. And the management canteen was, they used to serve wine at the table, and, you know, there would be a waiter that would come and bring you your meal to the table. In the staff one, sorry, it was buffet. It was fixed chairs and tables. It was, you know, in you go and out you go. So there were definitely differences. And the old joke at the time was, you know, when you've got a management role because you've got a chair with arms and a desk by the window.
So I'd imagine it was a difficult, must have been a challenge as well, not only in terms of acknowledging that transition from developer to now managing a team of developers, but also arguably within that management suite to which you refer, there must have been one or two looking around thinking, yeah, he's barely out of school, you know, and you know, does he have that tenure? So you, in terms of earning your stripes, I guess it would have put a degree of pressure on you to really step up very quickly.
Yeah, and absolutely. And that really took me to sort of my next stage really in my career, because couple of years into that role, I found there were significant blocks to progression, probably because of the age difference. And it sounds silly saying it, but, you know, there's definitely, it does hold you back, right? In that time in era, there were difficulties in that. So I within a couple of years, I realized there were things that I wanted to do and achieve that I could not do and achieve there. So I actually left. It was a time when contracting was sort of starting to become a bit more widely known. And I decided that, you know, I've been now with Plessy all my apprenticeship, plus the couple of years or so afterwards being a manager and so on. And I needed to broaden my wings. I needed to explore other things. And so I left as a contractor, and I went to Oxford. I went to Blackwell's Books Publishing, something completely different than telecoms. And, you know, I was there for 3 months before I was phoned one day, and I was asked whether I would consider relocating to Orlando in Florida, and to pick up where I left off really from the Plessy days, and travel to Siemens in Orlando, northern Orlando, a place called Lake Mary, and become a contractor there take up a 9 months assignment, basically to build the graphical services creation environment, it was called, part of intelligent networks for the US market. And so I did. I took them up on the offer, and I went over there, and that 9 months turned into 5 years. So wow. I lived in Florida for 5 years, and boy, did I meet some amazing people, some really talented engineers at that point. So yeah, I learned a lot in that phase of my life as well.
And what did you learn, do you think, from that experience?
So I got to work again. I mean, with my background, having lived in the States as a child, but then returning back in my late 20s, I sort of fitted into the culture really, really quickly. And, you know, I understand how it works there. And I think that really helped me. And I settled into the team really quickly. I got to work with some really talented engineers and really open my mind to, now as a senior developer, you know, how do I turn into an architect? How do I boost my career into bigger programs of work? And in that time, I worked with one chap. I remember a guy called Joel. He came from University of California, Berkeley, a very talented engineer. I learned a lot about software architecture from him. And I think I credit him for quite a lot of my sort of early understanding really in software architectures. But he sort of inspired me really for those, you know, turning one year into 5 to hang in there and launch intelligent networks into the US. They call it AIN, Advanced Intelligent Networks. And yeah, it was great. I returned in 2001 back to my roots. Really, came back to the Dorset area, and Marconi at the time had established themselves whilst I was overseas, and I came back to work with them.
Fantastic. And I'm right in thinking as well that you mentioned earlier that programming experience, I think, of plotting a map of the UK. You also earlier in your career had a spell at Ordnance Survey. Is that right? Was there any correlation between plotting maps at a young age and ultimately ending up at Ordnance Survey?
Yeah, do you know, I think there probably is. My grandfather was a keen walker all through my childhood, I was always outside. If I wasn't playing sports, golf for me is a particular passion, but walking in the countryside, my grandfather taught me to map read. And I think maybe, looking back on it, maybe that picture of drawing the map of GB was perhaps something deep inside there. I don't know, but always had an interest in the outdoors. And when I had an opportunity to start working with Ordnance Survey, I leapt at it because, it's a great organization. 200 years old, the sort of straight from the military map reading, producing the cartography and the detail inside those maps. It was an interest of mine. And having an opportunity there was fantastic. I joined there just around about the time of the Olympics in London in 2012, I think it was. I had a couple of challenging projects were given to me from the off with some really tight deadlines, and managed to achieve those. At which point there was happened to be a job opening for a head of development role. So the sort of the most senior software development role in the organization. And I put my hat into the ring, and fortunately I got that job, which was a great sort of start for me, because it was a company that I felt very comfortable with from day one. The ethos of getting people outside and enjoying our country, and the benefits in doing that, and the creation of those maps, really interesting process. The detail is staggering, and it really is a national asset. People don't understand really the capabilities in OS, but Ordnance Survey really is something our country should be very proud of.
And I would have imagined at a wonderful time, to your point around 200 years of history, but yet at the same time, an organisation that was wholly embracing, certainly from an external perspective, I wonder how the journey might have been internally, but from an external point of view, wholly embracing of technology and acknowledging that digitisation of maps, if you like. I remember, it was always the case that you went off on a journey with a family and there would always be an Ordnance Survey map in the car of wherever it was, whether it was the British Isles or wherever you were heading, there was a map, and you learned how to read a map. Clearly now it's very different, but you'd have been, I guess, part of that digitisation journey that Ordnance Survey was enjoying.
And that was one of the real challenges. So for me, for my role, when I became head of development, it was all about, how do we embrace digital? The paper map still has a place. It will always have a place. Batteries run out on phones. If you're stuck in the middle of the countryside, you need a paper map. So paper maps will always have a place. But you're right, absolutely. Digital services, apps, the whole kind of shift to digital was happening around about then. And Ordnance Survey were asking themselves about, well, what do we do? How do we build these engaging digital experiences to get people to really use our data in the best way possible, get people outside? And there are some other really interesting sort of scenarios as well that we can perhaps talk about. But I think using that data as a sort of foundation, location, everything exists around location. And I think getting that data, that authoritative data that OS is so well respected for, into the hands of the app builders, that was the challenge I was given. So I created a function at Ordnance Survey called digital engineering. I was responsible for, in the end, just over 100 people that were building digital applications and services across consumer, business and government. And it was a really interesting time because we were able to use modern tools and technologies and infrastructure, cloud, microservice architecture, the latest things that as a developer, as a technologist, you really wanted to use in your software development. And we were able to actually put that in place. And we won awards. I mean, we were building some really award-winning applications, and OS Maps today is one of those, and has a great user base and allows people to explore the countryside and not get lost, So you have the benefit of all that wealth of data and accuracy in the palm of your hand and in a really easy to use and engaging user experience. So I'm really proud of my time at Ordnance Survey and exploring digital and the benefits of digital for for a 200-year-old organization and making them relevant in the sort of the modern age was a real honor, really.
What do you think that OS experience equipped you with?
So it gave me a deeper understanding of geospatial, and I still, out of all the different industries that I touch today, geospatial for me is still perhaps the most interesting for me. There are so many benefits to it, and as I say, location sits really at the heart of everything. So smart cities, for example, is a topic that's been bandied around in the media. But what is it? I mean, a smart city is an environment which is for the better. So it addresses real challenges in city environments. So, for example, inefficient mobility. People have dirty, unclean environment, or the air they breathe is not clean enough. Pollution. It takes forever to cross a city from one side to the other. Well, how can we use technology to really solve some of those challenges and make people's environment that they live in and their journey time perhaps a better experience for them? So geospatial data will help solve some of those challenges. So I'm really interested in that space and how those challenges really will be solved into the future. I think we can talk about sort of digital twins and how do we create a real world object model? How do we take data that represents the real world, and then how do we model and use that data through things like artificial intelligence and analytics to really run scenarios through it? What if? How do we cross a city from A to B in the most efficient way, or in the cleanest way, or in the least polluting way? Those are the kind of problems we can solve with geospatial data, especially when you look at Internet of Things and the new IoT sensors that are being rolled out. But every day there seems to be more sensors plumbed in here and there. But IoT gives us another option to really measure pollution or travel congestion or people crowds on football day, and how do we manage them using that data and run artificial intelligence across it to really improve those situations. That's what we can do with the power of location.
As a if I could put you in this category, I hate to categorize, but nonetheless, as a technologist, if you like, if I could give it that term, it strikes me that this is a wonderful time, and to be in that space, that there are so many of our traditional assumptions, perhaps so much of our understanding that if not totally being ripped up, is undeniably being heavily disrupted, which on the one hand, I suppose, is fraught because change is a challenge for some, but actually also creates much by way of opportunity. And my sense is we're right at the beginning of the journey. It feels like technology has been integral to our lives for so long, but yet the possibilities, the like of which you're describing, we're barely scratching the surface. It must be, before we go into Spyrosoft, it must be an incredibly exciting time to be involved in the space.
Correct. Yeah, you're right. I mean, well, when you think computers as we know them, and I started working with them in the 80s, and my goodness me, your phone in the palm of your hand now is tenfold more powerful than those things, maybe more. But yeah, it is an exciting time. The opportunities that await us are amazing. We really are at the start of it. And, the IoT thing, they call it Industry 4.0. It is the next sort of industrial revolution, if you want to call it that, using sensors to really understand the environment and using those to perhaps improve our quality of life. Everything is about data. It all distills down to the data, and you collect that data from numbers of different sources, and you run intelligence across it and analytics across it to really understand the power of that data and answer problems. And when we've cracked that, I think, we'll be sort of slingshot will happen again, and we'll be moved forward. And who knows, we'll have autonomous cars driving around and maybe teleportation. Who knows?
So tell me, Andrew, what was the inspiration behind Spyrosoft?
Yeah, so it comes back to the Ordnance Survey days, really. The digital engineering. It was a really successful time, and I realized that what we did there, the way that we create those applications and gave access to data and the sort of the experience for the development teams to actually build those things. I thought that for me was an opportunity, really. I've always had this drive about possibly building my own company. And over the years, I've had a few sort of personal projects, and I've tried a few things here and there to build some products and services. But I think I really became aware of, how to do this and how valuable this could be, and offer this to other people that were struggling with creating great products. And I sort of had this blueprint, really, of how to do it. And when we won some of those awards that I mentioned earlier, it really convinced me that, yeah, I do know how to do this, and it's worth a go. I'm not getting any younger. I was sort of mid-40s at this point, and I just had this. I was almost having sleepless nights. It was on my mind all the time. I needed to do this and take this recipe of success and package it up and make it accessible by to other people. And that was really Spyrosoft in a nutshell. It was taking proven strategies that work and being in the trenches in technology for so long and wearing that T-shirt of this works and this doesn't work, taking that experience and packaging it up as a service to let other people engage with. That was a real kind of motivator for me. So that's really why I decided in the end I would leave Ordnance Survey and say goodbye to my friends there, and set up Spyrosoft with some trusted colleagues. And and it was to just do this. It was to provide access to the best software engineering experiences that we'd all tried and tested over our careers.
And was there a eureka moment? Was there that point at which you thought, that's it, that's the business, that's what I'm going to do?
Yeah, I think the eureka moment really for me was a moment of sort of self-reassurance that I have the skills to do this. And there was always that sort of, thought in my mind, or dream, if you like, would it be great to have a technology company of my own? My career has always been about building these things for other people. And, now would be a time to actually build a technology company rather than just sort of build software, me personally, I mean. And wouldn't it be great if I could offer that experience and understanding from my years working in technology and bringing the best people that I know along with me that can create this new technology company, and then really offer that capability out to people to really solve their problems. Over the years, IT projects have had a pretty poor reputation. They're always late, they're always over budget, and the sort of the traditional view is that, it's another late running costly IT project. Well, actually not all IT projects are late and overrunning and cost more if they're done correctly from the start. And my experience in my career was very much about solving those problems and bringing projects together on time, on budget. And so I had this sort of recipe of how to do this, and I wanted to offer that to customers using some great people that I know that could help. And that was really the moment of, right, let's set up Spyrosoft and let's offer this amazing opportunity to people out there and really help solve their problems and work in a transparent, collaborative way, and as technologists. So that was the start of it, really.
And what were some of the bigger challenges that were presented to you in those early days?
So in terms of challenges, I think it was when we started the company, it was always about, we're technologists. I'm not a salesperson. How do you do sales? How do you get the name out there, the brand out there, and attract your clients? And having worked in technology for all those years, I felt I knew what to do once I had the work, but actually, how do you find that work? And I think one of the learnings I really had was just be genuine and, true to yourself. And if you put yourself out there as a problem solver, people will go with it. People will work with you. And if you're genuine and you just get stuff done and you don't mess about doing it, then good things happen. And that's really part of the Spyrosoft story. We just do what we say we're going to do. And we work together to achieve a common goal. It's as simple as that. And we have the credibility, we have the skills and the background, having worked in technology all these years. So we know the right people. We understand how to build these products and services of the future. And we're just motivated to do the best that we can, and using the processes and experiences as we've tried and tested for all these years.
Was there a pivotal moment to which you'd attribute the success that Spyrosoft enjoys today?
So we grew really quickly. Within the first year, Spyrosoft went from just the founders to approximately 100 people. Year 2, we went up to 290 people or something. And then, here we are today in year 5, and we've got 650 people. So the growth has been extraordinary. And I think part of the challenge really is keeping things together, making sure communication flows between all the people and we're all pulling in the right direction. Finding the people, bringing those people into the team was a challenge. One of the sort of main moments that I reflect on, there have been a few, but 2 of them that really stick out for me was just before our pandemic arrived last year in 2020, we had the opportunity to become a public company. Our parent company in Poland, Spyrosoft SA, became a public company listed on the Warsaw Stock Exchange. That was a real moment for all of us to think, wow, we've created this from nothing, and to get it to the point now to launch on a stock exchange is just an amazing achievement for everybody involved. Customers as well included, to giving us the chance to work with them and growing together across those projects and building our company. That was the first main thing. And then just really a few months ago, we were recognized by the Financial Times, top 1,000 companies in Europe. And I think we were number 5 on that list of 1,000. And we were actually number 1 fastest growing technology company in Europe, which is just, again, quite an incredible achievement. And I'm ever so grateful for everybody that's been involved in that journey. But that is another one of those sort of milestone moments, really, where you look back on it and you think, yeah, that was a significant point in the history of the company.
What do you think you've learned over the last 5 years?
I've learned that it's all about people. With our skills and knowledge builds technology solutions, but you can't do any of that without the people. So I'm a slightly different person, I think, in technology. A lot of technologists are, they like machines. They like working with machines. I think I'm a bit of a hybrid. I do like working with machines, but equally I like to have a chat with people, and I like to have a beer in the pub with people. And I think it's about people, to hire great people, to work with great people. You need to be flexible. And particularly the pandemic and so many companies have, were hit hard by coronavirus, and, that resilience that's really needed to keep the wheels turning when all of a sudden a big change comes in like coronavirus. It's all about people and giving people the flexibility to be great. Don't give a task to somebody that they don't like working on that type of task, because you're going to get a rubbish outcome. You work and play to people's strengths. You give work that they're interested in. You look after those people. You motivate them with great projects to work on. You support them in their home life and allow them flexibility to work at the times that perhaps they're the most productive. So I've learned that it's all about people. And I think if I was to sort of reflect on my early stage career now, compared to now, I think I would emphasize the fact it's very much people. Technology comes high on the list, but without the people, you don't have anything.
With the benefit of hindsight, looking back over the last 5 years, is there anything that you would have done differently?
I think we've been very successful in a very short time, and obviously hugely humbled by that and grateful for that. Would I have done anything differently? I think probably I would have done this earlier in my career. Having said that, you need, I think, to get to a point in your career where you've got experience and you need to have, worn that T-shirt and felt the successes and learnt from the failures. So there is a sort of sweet spot in time, I think, before you can give it a real good go. But would I have done anything differently in setting up Spyrosoft? I don't think so. I think the structure that we have, because we work in different locations around the world, I think that works really well. The blended approach from different cultures of people working together to deliver a common project works really well because you get different insights. I think there's advantages because in technology, it's difficult to find great people. Everyone is trying to hire the best people, and there's this sort of war of talent that's going on. And to attract those people to come and work in your company, you need to show that flexibility and support for those people, but giving them great projects to work on. I think Spyrosoft does do that. We are a company that from our roots, we've all been there. We've all been those developers. We understand the challenges they face, and frankly, it's difficult, right? You're creating something from nothing, and your solution might not exist. And that's an intellectually taxing task. So giving them the support they need to focus and learn and let them fly, that's really important, and that's something we aim to do.
What have you enjoyed about the experience over the last 5 years?
So I think my enabling people to come and join us. I love the thought of leaving a legacy. I'm 50, and looking at my career now, I'm in the later years of my career, and I think leaving a legacy of being able to employ people come to join the company, the heart of which in our country is in Dorset, which is an area I've grown up. I think that really is rewarding for me personally. I want to be an employer. I want to build a great technology company in this part of the world. And I think for me, that's a great legacy to leave.
So what is it that drives you?
So I'm a family person. I care deeply for my family, and I do everything I do because of them. I lost my father. My father passed away when he was 54, so I lost him quite early, and I think that really drives me to be the best that I can be. He had a great work ethic, and family obviously meant a lot to him as it does to myself. I think that's a real driver for me to be successful in everything I do. Really, ultimately, gives time and opportunity to the family, and that's really where I draw strength from.
I guess, therefore, not to make any assumption, but that time with family becomes ever critically important.
That's absolutely right. Children growing up, being there at the sports day, those sorts of times, key moments really in the development of children, that's really important. And, I mentioned about flexibility when we employ people. For me, those things come first. We will always, deliver our projects as best as we can to the customers we're working for. But, we also want to be decent people. We want to have fun. We want to be there for, those key moments in time for our families. And that's no different for me than everybody else that works for Spyrosoft. So I've learned, my father passing away so young, I've learned that those things really matter. And I want to make sure that other people can kind of benefit from that.
Absolutely. So who do you most admire?
I don't really have sort of, certain key people. I think I admire lots of people for different reasons. I think that sort of family value, it really strikes a chord with me. Sort of responsibility to the community, innovation, bringing things forward. We it's all about the future. And we study the past, we learn from the past, but it is the past. We live for the future, and everything moves forward. So I think people visionaries, the tech people that you would always hear the names of, the people behind Microsoft and Amazon, they're the usuals that people come up with. But I think for me, it's about just great people that work hard to try and do a good job, in a decent way. And those are the people that inspire me. And, it's about being nice, but being productive and making things happen. So, yeah, I don't have one sort of person that I would admire. There's probably many people that fit that bill.
And away from work, what do you do to unwind and relax? You mentioned golf and sport generally. Is there a time that you do get to relax, and therefore how might you spend that time?
Yes, indeed. So golf is a passion for me. I've been playing since I was literally knee high. I was born into it, really. All my family play. But yeah, I love it. I mean, it goes back to being outside, the Ordnance Survey, getting outdoors thing. So I like being in green space. Golf for me brings that sort of sporting element. It brings challenge. It's quite a difficult game to play. There are lots of things you can't control. Bad bounces, the wind that might, get up all of a sudden, things that are out of your control. And that challenge really of completing the course in the best way that you can. But yeah, it's sort of headspace. It's 4 hours on a golf course where I'm not really thinking about technology or challenges in running a company, and it gives me a bit of downtime mentally and a bit of exercise. But yeah, it's a sport I love. I watch it on TV. I go and I go and visit tournaments whenever I can. I've played competitively. Yeah, I'm a decent player, I think, and it's something that I will play probably until the last breath.
You're not still out on the courts. There isn't a hoop above the garage, and
no,
basketball days are long gone.
Yeah, I think the knees are a bit shot. So no, I don't think so. I still will watch it if I see it on TV. I'll definitely watch it. But yeah, I'm afraid those days are long gone now. Stick with the golf.
So what advice would you give 21-year-old Andrew Radcliffe?
I think work a bit slower. I have quite a high work rate. People that know me and work with me will know that there's always lots going on. And I think one thing I'm very conscious of is because I work at quite a high speed, I think not everybody else is the same. So I think I would say to perhaps younger myself, perhaps slow down a little bit, be a bit more of a sort of completer finisher. I'm very much a starter and creator. So I think learn from the fact that, you need to get maybe some stuff done before you start the next few things. So I think that's the sort of the thought I would have on that one.
And what about advice to any aspiring entrepreneur out there with a dream? What might you impart to such an individual?
Just do it. There's one life here. If you have it in you and you want to try it, just do it. I think you just have to try it. And, if you make a bad decision, as I said earlier, you can make another decision to change it. So really, what have you got to lose? There are some basic safety nets and things you should have in place. You probably need a little bit of savings to make sure you can pay your mortgage next month. But, aside from that, if you've got a dream and a vision and you are focused on what that is, just do it, because it will happen. If you set yourself that goal and you're aiming at that goal, other things will change along the way, and you will achieve what you set out to achieve. I strongly believe that from personal experience. If you can really paint the picture so it's super clear and you can literally touch it and you understand it, it will happen.
And we touched on this earlier, but I'm interested to explore perhaps in a little more depth. In terms of innovations and advances in technology, of which there are so many, are there any in particular that you're very much excited by? We talked about geolocation and those sorts of areas earlier, but what are you excited about in technology right now?
I think the potential of artificial intelligence really, really is interesting. There are some moral implications with AI, particularly around ethics and data ethics. But the potential of artificial intelligence and understanding analytics and really deriving perhaps automation from automated decision making from some of that data, I think the potential of that is huge. If we could improve people's quality of life in the smart cities example I mentioned earlier, through automated processes, through using sensors and using the data those sensors collect to make decisions about maybe, I don't know, let's say, shutting a road dynamically to improve the flow of traffic through a city at the right time, to make the football crowd that arrives outside the stadium on Saturdays for football, to improve the flow and congestion of those people moving into that city and out of that city, before and after the game, to improve people's lives in an automated way, using machines, using the intelligence of gathering data from sensors. It's absolutely possible. And it makes people's quality of life better. They spend less time fighting through the crowd to get to the stadium for the football. They don't breathe in as much pollution, carbon monoxide and the other horrible gases from cars, in that process. They save money because it's a quicker journey. There are loads of advantages in doing that, and it's all possible. So, I'm excited around sort of AI and its uses of AI. I'm wary about the sort of threats of, data and sort of cybersecurity implications. It's quite big in the media, of course, at the moment, with everybody having done a lot of remote working. But I think you can use geospatial data to really help fight against some of the cyber threats. If you have systems that are looking at inbound requests, well, let's look at the location of that request. Well, if it comes from a completely different country, then straight away it's perhaps questionable. So we can use intelligence with geospatial data to perhaps improve security and threat management. So that there are loads of applications of technology where I can see, big benefits as we move forward. And I mean, I'm just enjoying it. Spyrosoft is a company that are able to build these things, and it's great fun doing so and seeing it work.
So what does the future look like for Andrew Radcliffe?
So I haven't got any plans to go anywhere anytime soon. I'm having fun still. So we're still growing the company. The company will touch other locations around the world. We're still on this growth trajectory. It's all about building the best products and services that we can. And for me personally, I just want to give my best really sort of shot to enable that to happen, support the company, give other people opportunities as they join us in amongst the teams. But for me, I'm just happy to enjoy the ride at the moment.
So where can listeners, or where should listeners go to find out more about Spyrosoft, Andrew? Are you URL, social media, all those sorts of good places? Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, usual places. So LinkedIn, Twitter, but yeah, of course, any information about Spyrosoft as an organization, please go to the corporate website, so spyro-soft.com. But yeah, we're on all the social channels as well.
Fantastic. Well, look, it's been a pleasure to speak with you this morning. Thank you for your time, and many congratulations on the success that Spyrosoft has enjoyed. The result, I've no doubt, of an awful lot of blood, sweat and tears from a great number of very talented people. But nonetheless, many congratulations, and long may it continue. And look forward to watching from afar as that success continues apace. You're a great example to many, and a great source of inspiration to many. So really appreciate your time, and all the very best for the future.
That's fantastic. Thanks very much, Lee. Really enjoyed it. And thanks very much for your time. That's great.
Great stuff. Thanks, Andrew. All the best.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening to today's Extrology podcast. I really appreciate your audience and ears. If you've enjoyed it, then why not hop onto iTunes and give us a review? I'd really appreciate anything that you might have to say. Any feedback always gratefully received, and look forward to hosting you next time. See you soon. Just a reminder, today's podcast is brought to you by Progresso Talent Partners. Visit www.progressotalent.com today for more information.